Hi, welcome to the Work Hard, Play Hard, and Give Back, a real estate podcast. I'm Mike Litzner, broker-owner of Coldwell Banker American Homes, and we're here in the Franklin Square studio at American Homes, and I'm happy to introduce the king of commercial. The king of commercial, Tony Briguglio.
Thank you.
Coldwell Banker Commercial AMH. Welcome, Tony. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. It's great to be here. Franklin Square is a gorgeous office, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. We had a great staff here, too, by the way. So, well, welcome to the studio here. Before we jump into some questions, I just want to remind our audience, if you like the episodes, you like what you're seeing here, remember to like, subscribe, and stay around to the end because we have the drop the mic question, which is always a lot of fun.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we'll wait till you hear the questions first. So don't jump ahead, Tony. You'll be careful.
I'm ready for anything, Mike.
All right, there we go. All right, so let's jump in, Tony.
Let's go.
So come on, as lead, broker of record, Coldwell Banker Commercial AMH. What first drew you to commercial real estate?
The non-emotional aspect of buying property is very important to me. People aren't emotional about a brick building, multifamily, a warehouse, industrial. They buy a hotel, motel, they just want to know that the property earns.
Okay.
Property earns, they want to buy it.
So what's the driver? What's really the driver in the purchase of any commercial property?
The net operating income and the area, very important to a lot of people. But everybody is different. Every seller is different. So they all have their own niche of why they buy or why they sell.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how much different is it like the investor side as opposed to the owner, operator, end user, as you would say?
The investor wants to get the property for as inexpensive as possible because the amount of money it has to do to build or build out.
Right.
The owner, the end user, doesn't care really much about the price as long as the net operating income falls within, a 7 cap, or they can get the money back within 12 or 13 years.
Okay, so let you just hit on something then. Again, a lot of our audience, either they are licensed or in the periphery of real estate, but we have a lot of open consumers, so to speak, of real estate. So you just touched on something called the cap, cap rate.
Yes.
A lot of people seem to be confused what that actually means. Would you mind to expand upon that? Of course.
The cap rate is the driving force of when you're going to get your money back on your investment. So cap rate goes by net operating income and area. So somewhere in California on a main strip, like where the Chinese theater is, would probably be a lower cap rate, which would be a higher selling price, than somewhere that would be in a depressed area, like Wisconsin or Cleveland, Ohio, would have a much higher cap rate, which would be 8, 9, 10, 12%. So the prices would be much lower.
But bring it a little bit more. Cap rate is short for capitalization, right? Is that So really it's relevant to the amount of return, relevant to the amount of money it costs to acquire. And
yes, the net operating income generates the cap rate. Also, the area generates the cap rate. So if you're going to buy a property right in the middle of Manhattan, it's going to be let's just call it a 2.5 to 3 cap.
Okay, which
you're
is
going to come out on Long Island. Yeah, if you're going to come out on Long Island, it's going to be a 6.5 to 7.5 cap rate.
Okay,
which will be a much less expensive property.
So in other words, investors are expecting a higher rate of return to invest in certain markets, and certain robust markets have extra value, so to speak, in there.
Of course,
or intrinsic value on the periphery. That make it worthwhile making that investment longer term.
Hotels and motels don't work on a cap rate. They work on 3.5 to 4.5 times the gross of the operation.
Okay.
So certain properties work on gross, like gas stations.
Right.
As long as the owner is running the business, it goes by gross.
Okay.
If he's selling the business because he has a tenant, then it goes by cap rate.
Okay.
Big difference.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to an agent who's getting licensed and are trying to decide their path, their future? Obviously residential is a big part of what Coldwell Banker American Homes does. It's a huge part, I should say.
Yeah, excellent.
But it's a very different lane.
In commercial, you'd have to dedicate a lot more time into your training aspect of it. Like you really have to learn how to speak to the people that have millions and millions and millions of dollars. Not saying residential people don't, but our average building that we sell is $2 million to $4 million on an average.
Right.
So a person that's got 4, 5, 6 of those obviously has a good amount of money, and they're typically spoke to in a different manner than a residential customer would be spoke to. So you have to be on their level. So
Right.
they want to speak to someone that understands, because they'll know in 4 seconds
Yeah.
if you don't know commercial real estate, and they won't use you.
Well, so let's jump in on. So having been in sales my whole adult life, 41 years, so I find product knowledge. By the way, it's not enough agents take it seriously enough. But I don't care if you're selling houses or you're selling commercial. Product knowledge. What I find interesting commercial, and please tell me if I'm wrong on here. It's like there seems to be this approach or mindset for some, especially from the residential side. It's like commercial real estate, and it's like all one globular thing as opposed to residential. It's just residential, but commercial has industrial, retail, office space. There's property sales. There's leasing.
There's land. There's
development, right? Highest and best use, as
of course
we talk about.
Yeah.
So, so if you went back in time to give yourself advice, to when you first joined real estate, now in hindsight, what would you tell yourself?
I would have concentrated more on understanding how the buyer and the seller would react to your presentation, because again, product knowledge is everything.
Right.
You have to have the product knowledge on all those different assets that these people have, whether they're buying or selling. So, yes, in the beginning, we didn't worry about the product knowledge. We worried about just getting the listing any way we possibly can.
Right.
Because we felt in the beginning, the more listings we had, the more we're going to sell. That was definitely not true.
Right.
You can't. It doesn't matter if I got 400 pounds of bologna. If I only sell 200 pounds of bologna, I'm going to have a bad product sitting in the case. So
you're going to have a lot of garbage.
Right.
You're going to increase your sanitation expense.
Right. Exactly, for no reason. So we've learned that getting the people who really, really, really wanted to sell their product or wanted to buy a product, we had to qualify them now. So we had to master our qualifications. So we had to put them through what we would call the master qualification situation. Means, do you really want to sell your property? Is there any nieces and nephews or brothers or sisters or kids that you want to leave it to? And once we realized that they really wanted to sell their product, then we were the right people for them. And then we would definitely react a lot more to, all right, let's get this sold, and we would research it and get it sold for them as fast as possible, because they're in tune with you. They want to sell it.
Right.
It's people who think that their property is worth a lot more than it is that we don't take on any longer, because there's no reason for it.
Well, it's interesting. As much as from my vantage point, again, 41 years of doing this, commercial is very different. The parallels of salesmanship is communication.
Yes.
Effective communication.
Yes.
And, they always say, like, on the residential side, listing's the name of the game. You control the listing inventory. The buying public has to come to you. And I always said that it's not all the listings. I don't need all the listings. I just need the saleable listings.
Right, you need the right one.
Right. So, and it's being able to dig in to understand the seller's needs, motivation, wants, and be able to communicate value. Yeah. Now, I want to touch on value a little bit, because interesting. Again, I cut my teeth originally on the residential side. Obviously, I bought and sold businesses and commercial. I own commercial property. So over the years, I've learned a lot about commercial property, and yet I'm deferring to you as the commercial expert. And I've called you numerous times and picked your brain, and you've been a great resource for me.
And someone who's got 41 years in the business who defers to me is I'm blessed to have you calling me up for stuff like that. It makes me feel real good about it.
Well, so, it's mad respect,
Thank you.
And I do understand the complexity of commercial, so much so that you surround yourself with people that are more knowledgeable than you in their respective fields.
You don't want to be the smartest guy in the room.
No, that's a problem.
I get it.
It's good.
I get it.
So over the years, I've taken appraisal courses. And one of the things I find really interesting in valuations, which is a big part of real estate, when you're the expert, whether you're residential or commercial, is valuation. But on the residential side, they're taught really only one approach, and it's the comparable approach. Many times, right, people are hear real estate agents or appraisers reference the word comps. And what is a comp? It's a comparable property that is sold.
Right.
Now, if I understand correctly, and maybe you can expand upon this, that's not necessarily the most common approach in valuations in commercial side.
That's correct.
So how do you typically start in valuing a property?
Well, again, net operating income definitely sets a value because the capitalization rate is based on the net operating income. So if I would say to you, Mike, I have a property in Mastic,
Right.
or I have a property in Dix Hills, or a property in Longwood, and one of the property makes $3 million net operating income per year, do you really care where it's at when the other ones only make $1 million?
If they're all the same price, no.
Exactly.
Absolutely
so
not.
One property, it doesn't matter where it is, if it's generating a lot of net operating income, that's going to be more desirable to an investor
Yeah.
or an end user. Either one, they're going to want it because they know they're going to get their money back fast. So the net operating income definitely generates a different kind of comp
Right.
because I have a lot of tools that I use to help me generate comps, and that's comps for what's sold in the area,
Right.
based on the property size, based on the building size, based on where the property is. That is one way to look at it in the worst case scenario. But
Right.
in commercial real estate, they don't really care about comps. They care about what the property is generating, and
Right.
that is 95% of why
Yeah.
a person would buy a commercial property.
Well, isn't it true too? It's like in the residential side, I'm looking at a house, let's say Franklin Square, since we're in Franklin Square. I got a Cape Cod that I'm looking at. I want to value it. So I go back a year, there's maybe 50 Cape Cods that have sold within a reasonable radius of that property, right? And I can see, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, does it have a basement, garage, similar property size, and see what they sold. Now I get a 10,000 square foot office building, right? It was how many 10,000 square foot office buildings sold within, a 5-mile radius of this building in Franklin Square, right?
Yeah, right. Not many.
Right. And
So-
if the nearest comp was, 110,000 square feet, a residential agent wouldn't think about comping a 3-bedroom, 1-bath Cape against a 5-bedroom, 3.5-bath Colonial. They say,
Right.
they were different animals, and yet here we are trying to comp a 10,000 square foot building against a 110,000 square foot building. So I think that plays into it to a certain extent as well.
Of course.
Right.
Of course. Yeah, because what is the rate of rentals? I mean, is it 90% rented? Is it 50% rented? You could have a 110,000 square foot building that's only 22% rented.
Yeah.
And have a 10,000 square foot that's 100% rented, but yet has a long list of people that are waiting to get in because of where it's at and the desire of the building and the reputation of the building. And if that income is greater than the one that's 110,000 square feet, then obviously the 110,000 square feet's got a lot of dead space, so it's not going to get you your money back as quick as the 10,000 square foot. So you have to know these things in order to go forward, and the people that are buying and selling know that if you hit on what they agree on.
Yeah.
So
I know you or I would probably pivot to, a little bit to price per square foot to use the difference of 10,000 versus 110,000. When appraisal comes in, let's just say they're not getting private financing and that building appraises. How much value does the appraiser put on the price per square foot?
they put all of it on the price per square foot.
Yeah, but what about the leases now? So now I know if I'm looking at that 110,000 square foot or the 10,000 square foot building, right?
Right. It's
fully occupied. But I would look at those leases and say, well, who are my tenants here? Are they current on their rent? How many years out? If the one lease is 5 years out, but they're 3 months behind, and then the two best payers are expiring in 6 months, what's my longevity of the cash flow? So,
of course. We recently looked at an office building that had it was 70% rented, but all 70% were coming up at the end of 2025. So.
Wow. Is it one tenant or just coincidental?
No, it was just the way he rented out. It was just so all 70% of what's rented is coming up at the end of 2025. Well, virtually, an investor's not going to pay up for that property because he could be left with zero.
Yeah, high risk.
Yeah, it's too high risk for him to actually bite into it. So that particular gentleman wanted $11 million for his property, and he's willing to go down to $7. I mean, we got him down to 7.5 in a matter of seconds. But then you go to the comp of the property, right? So that type of property in the area is going for about $5 or $6 million. So he's actually asking for a couple of $1 million over the actual comps of what the property's value in that city.
Right.
So knowing that you could possibly be vacant, which is kind of good in a way if you understand it, because then there's something called a pro forma and there's upside.
Right.
Every investor wants to buy a property with upside. They don't want to be stuck. So some investors love that there's a 10-year lease left, and some investors can't stand that there's a 10-year lease left. So
Right.
you have to really feel out your client and qualify them to understand what kind of buyer they are to find them the right product.
It's also, I would assume, right, that it also depends on the momentum in the marketplace. You know,
Yeah,
if
of course.
if the economy is expanding and there's demand for space, you know, what's the likelihood I can fill a space and fill it at a higher price, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If there's a higher upside on that, then you want the leases.
Yeah.
But in the last few years, when, you know, the economy
Yes.
contracted a little bit, you know, I don't know if I'd be as...
Nobody was paying their rent.
Yeah. So I guess we have to, that factors into it.
Of course it does.
Now, how much does, you know, the crazy roller coaster of interest rates the last few years? So let me frame it for our audience here.
Yeah.
I'd say the last 2 years, we've seen something I know in 40 years I had never seen before. We not only saw the doubling of an interest rate, but the tripling of an interest rate in a short period of time, in 6 months or less. In other words, when the rate was bottom out around 2.5%, even though kind of like, you know, I know people have gotten a little bit below, but maybe it's 15 years. It was, you know,
Right.
depending. So the 30-year fixed rate, and then with all of a sudden it jumped up to 5%, which is double, and then jumped up to 7.5%. So now you're triple the rate. Now, the people that locked in with a fixed rate, which is more common in residential, are set or in a great
Correct.
place. But
Correct.
from what I understand, what's the appetite for fixed rate versus adjustable rates, you know, in the commercial sector?
Okay, so the battle between buyer and seller has been real strong for the past 2 years, not including 2025, but 2024 and 2023, because
Right.
when the rate went up, the sellers obviously wanted their price, and the buyers said, "Well, that's insane. I'm not going to pay full price if I have a big interest rate."
Right.
And the sellers came back and said, "Well, in a couple of years, you're just going to refinance, and I'm going to lose the extra income I should be getting from my property." So the sellers were asking for the right number, but the buyers wanted a discount because the rate was high.
Right.
So because the rate was high, knowing you can today in 2025, SBA loans are very, very popular, and you can get a lot of money for very little interest rate comparable to a normal interest rate.
How much difference is
A couple of points.
It
Yeah, it
is that
depends
much.
on what your business generates and how
Now,
good you are.
is it true though that you have to be owner occupied 51% to get?
Yeah, you have to be owner occupied. You have
Okay.
to prove it.
So
but
if-
that's easy to do. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
On paper or in reality?
Both. I mean, you have your office in there, so
Our audience is going to be seeing this.
yes,
It's going out to
yes.
the public.
No, you have to listen. You can't fool the program. So
Yes.
they understand. They know what's going on.
Okay.
You know,
So-
they're willing to lend money if the company that's getting the loan is very reputable and they have a
Right.
really good background. They're not
Right.
just giving it to the guy who decides he wants to open up a deli and
Right.
it's not happening.
Correct.
You have to have a good background. You have to prove yourself.
Yeah. Now, I'd heard that the SBA loans definitely are a little bit more complicated paperwork-wise,
Yeah.
and they take a lot longer to get approved. Is there a noticeable difference? What do you see on your side?
Yeah, it definitely takes a little bit longer to go through the motions because they're doing their due diligence on you and your company.
Okay.
I mean, they're checking you, they're checking into your business, they're checking into your EIN numbers, they're making sure that there's no shenanigans happening. So again, a reputable company is going to get the SBA loan with really no issues. But if you're sketchy in any kind of way, shape, or form, and they figure out that you're trying to just fudge numbers, because everybody tries to fudge numbers, it's just the way of the world.
I don't know.
It's
It's like trying to value the Mar-a-Lago. I don't know if I want to fudge numbers in New York.
No, we don't want to fudge numbers, but there are some companies out there that just try to do what they got to do to get a loan. I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
We've seen it so many times where they put in an offer, SBA, and then when the due diligence is up, they still don't have an approval because they just,
Yeah.
we know they're not going to get it.
Yeah. So
You
what
know.
would be the time frame you would expect?
45 days.
It is
60 days max.
60. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
compare that to conventional financing.
15 days, 25 days.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
because it's more streamlined, there's not much investigation going on. They run your credit, They see your bank account. They see that you have the money putting down is required 20, 30% or whatever it is, 3% on the FHA.
Yeah. Conventional. What are they expecting traditional down payments?
20% typically is just normal. Yeah.
Okay. Is it how often they're demanding 25 or 30%?
Depending on how the bank comes back with a value.
Okay.
And the bank uses their own appraiser, so they come back with their own way of evaluating the property.
Okay. Now,
and you can beat that. You can overcome it by coming up with another appraiser or a different appraisal that sees it differently.
Do they have to be approved by that bank, though?
Yeah, the bank would dispatch out a different appraisal company.
Okay.
So 2 appraisals on a complicated property is not abnormal.
Okay. SBA. Now, the SBA allows for a much higher loan to value. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the max value, LTV?
They would probably give you 80% or 85%, depending on.
Can you get 90 on SBA or
You
not?
can get 90. You can. But 80, 85 is like where they're very comfortable.
Right.
90 is more complicated to where they have to do more investigating.
All right. So it starts to get a little
100%.
dicey, but it's possible up to 90.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right. Good. It's good
That's
framework.
why SBA is so popular.
Yeah. Well, lower rates and higher
rates,
LTVs.
Higher LTVs,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So the commercial market has seen a lot of shifts in the last few years. Right now for investors, and business owners, what should they be paying attention to?
It depends on the asset that they're used to buying. A lot of investors like to buy land and build, Believe it or not, if they invested in shopping centers right now, we're on fire.
Right.
Because national tenants pay even when they move out. So,
Right.
So you can't get a national tenant without a shopping center. I mean, you can have a standalone building, one, a Burger King, a McDonald's,
Right.
whatever, Taco Bell. But shopping centers are probably the best investment you can make if you have something that's going to be in the 10 plus units in a shopping center.
Okay.
Because you can put more national tenants in there, so your income is guaranteed to somebody who's going to want to buy it in the future.
Yes.
Which is real nice.
Yeah. Well, I guess when you have a publicly traded company, that's
It's the way to go.
technically worth $1 billion plus.
Yeah.
It's safe to say your rent is a little bit more secure.
Sure. We've sold many Dollar Generals that have been out of business for 2-3 years, and Dollar General is still paying rent.
Really?
Yeah.
It's publicly traded? Dollar General?
Yeah. So
I don't shop there, so I don't know much.
well, there's not many in New York. I mean,
Okay.
There's a lot of out of New York, but
Yeah.
We do sell in the 50 states, so
Right.
it's not that uncommon for us to come across a Dollar
Yeah.
General. So then the seller has to say, I'm getting a guaranteed income from Dollar General. Once I sell it, I don't have that income stream anymore.
Right.
The new owner will take over, and Dollar General will give them a buyout. That's typically how it works. Dollar General says, "Okay, I owe for the next 4 years. I owe $260,000. I'll give you $100,000. You can put toward the purchase, get us out of our lease, and then we go forward." So,
Right.
and they guarantee it, just like a lot of national companies. It's triple N. So you don't have to worry about property. You don't have to worry about fixing trees. You don't have to worry about the electric going out. You just collect your check.
Right. Right.
So triple N shopping centers, standalones,
Okay. So
big business.
what's if someone was looking for shopping centers right now, have any good properties right now?
Yes, yeah, we have quite
Come
a
on.
few.
Well, why don't you? Here's your chance for a pitch.
We have quite a few shopping centers for sale right now, especially in Florida. We're currently putting together a $65 million two shopping centers that can potentially go up another 4 stories. So it makes the value so much more, and that's where we came up with the $65 million valuation. So we have those shopping centers that are in the workings right now. We have a shopping center in Westbury that's approved for 7,000 square feet, 9 units, 800 square feet per unit.
Okay.
And that will bring you $250,000 a year in net operating income.
Okay.
So the value of that property is around $4 million, but
Once complete with
when it's
construction.
complete and the owner's only selling it for $2.1 million. So there's a lot of upside on that property.
Right.
And it would only cost you $225 per square foot to build that 7,000 square foot building. So
Right.
all in, you're at 3.5. The property's going to be worth $4,100,000, and you're only paying
Right.
3.5 for it. So you got a $500,000 leeway there. So
Okay.
and your property will be paid off in 13 years, 12, 13 years. So
Okay.
that's a great property to have also.
Yeah.
So yeah, shopping centers are the way to go. And gas stations, phenomenal.
Okay.
Phenomenal.
Now, okay, since you brought up gas stations.
Yeah.
All right. I have a little bit of background since My dad owned a gas station.
Love it.
Over the years and stuff like that. What should an investor or even an agent be concerned about environmental? What's typical process on an environmental?
Depends on the tanks in the ground.
Yeah.
We sold a gas station in Wisconsin. We were ready to close. They did a phase 1. They found a little bit of garbage in the ground. Then they did phase 2. The guy never had an environmental problem, never had tanks leaking, but he did store, he rented out part of his lot to trucks.
Okay.
Those trucks leaked oil, went into the ground over 20 years, and boom, you have an environmental problem. So it held up the closing for a year and a half.
Wow. Okay.
Because they have to get to the source, right?
They have to remediate.
Yeah, of course. If your tanks are 20, 25 years old and you don't do an environmental every year, you're going to run into problems. So the environmental is very important to understand how many tanks are in there. Are they single line, double line, they metal, they fiberglass? When was the last time we changed?
Right.
Checking the lines from the tanks to the pumps is very important.
Yeah.
Some people have brand new tanks, but they have 25-year-old pumps that look like R2D2. I don't even understand it, but they really do. And they just put money into their properties. If it's a big company like Bola, or it's a Mobil, or it's an Exxon, or it's a good company, they'll make sure that everything's done the right way. But if it's a mom and pop in Illinois, you could have a little bit of a problem with it.
For our audience here, what's the difference between a phase 1 environmental and a phase 2?
A phase 1 is just pretty much take a spoon, stick it in the ground, check that, send it out, and check it. A phase 2 is they have to drill.
All right.
They have to drill holes and take big samples.
Boring samples, as they call it, right?
They have to.
All right.
I would have to tell you that 6 out of 10 gas stations that get sold get converted to a fast food chain or a coffee shop. So that's where the environment becomes the most important, because you can't serve food on a place that's environmentally issue.
What's going on in the banking industry? It seems like for a number of years there was a lot of banks expanding.
There are so many banks.
And now, with the advent of online banking, what do you see in that
there are so many banks for sale right now.
Yeah.
So many. So what's great about the banks being sold is the dispensary business is taking over those banks, because the vaults are temperature controlled.
Okay.
So they don't have to install anything that has to be temperature controlled, because all the vaults are temperature controlled, which is great.
Okay, so they're actually using...
Yeah, so they're looking for them, but we have to wait until New York or, Florida or California wake up a little bit more to the dispensary, because they're only allocating a certain amount per year. And there's a lot more people that have licenses to sell but just can't find a place.
Yeah, the location.
Yeah, so, and the banks are holding on to it. They want to sell their property for a lot.
Yeah. So,
which is good, because they know there's a need for it.
So let me pivot a little bit here. What's one piece of advice that you think is completely overrated? Like, buy low, sell high. You hear these, little cliche things. What's a piece of advice as it pertains to commercial real estate?
Well, the major thing that's overrated is not taking it serious enough.
Okay.
People just come in and they're like, oh, I could sell commercial property and work 2 days a week, and it's not that type of job. It's not that type of career. I mean, I don't see it as a job, because I love every second that I'm in it.
Right.
I love what I'm doing right now, this second with you.
Yeah.
I love when I'm going to leave here and go look at a property. I love talking to people on the phone about their properties. The knowledge that you can get just by having conversations is immense, because it just doesn't stop. So taking it so nonchalantly is...
Okay. Now, do you take part-time people on or not? Because in residential, you see a lot of people get 1 foot in the business, 1 foot out. Sometimes they cross over.
Right.
And, it's a business. I always say it's a business opportunity.
Yes.
Agent decides to sell real estate. They're in, it's an opportunity to be in business for themselves, not necessarily by themselves. But it's not uncommon for people to come in part-time and be somewhat effective. I mean, again, what's part-time? If, I see it twice a month for 2 hours.
Right.
That's not really part-time, but 20 hours a week consistently would be.
I don't have any part-time agents 20 hours a week.
How many agents are on the Coldwell Banker Commercial AMH team right now?
Well, right now we have 10 full-time people that come into the office and train, phone call, train, phone call, train, phone. It's all the same, but they understand what the concept is of why they either left residential, came to the commercial side, or just started out in commercial because that's what they really want to do. They want
Right.
to take a big bite instead of a little bite.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I can't train you, if you wanted to work part-time and I couldn't train you and really, you're not going to have the knowledge to go out there by yourself. You're just not.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
just not.
So many different nuances in the properties, as we were already
So many.
alluded to in this conversation already.
We do have people that are part of our team that do nothing but send us pictures of for sale by owner on commercial property. That's all they do, drive around all day.
Yeah.
And they can earn just by giving us those leads, and we can turn those leads into sales. So
Right,
there are
right.
people that do that. I mean, we're not going to turn away anybody that wants to give us a free lead. I mean,
Right.
have to be crazy to do that. So we had people that just say, hey, I see a lot of for sales, and I'm just going to drive around all day. That's what I want to do while I'm taking care of my family. We're
Right.
okay. We're fine with that.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. But we're not going to teach you the commercial business.
Yeah, that's it's the different thing to be spotting signs and sharing information as
Yes.
opposed to actually
Yes.
evaluating professionally commercial properties
Correct.
and negotiating transactions.
Right. If you wanted to give me 20 hours of your time every week, I'll give you 40 hours of knowledge in those 20 hours
Okay.
to escalate you. But you have to obviously understand you have to be a salesperson in at least 80% of what you're doing, and then I'll teach
Yeah.
you the other 20% in
Right,
knowledge.
right.
It's very important. If you don't have that flair, you're not going to
And
make
it's
it.
it's the consistency also, right? I'm sure it's the same. That's a parallel, I'm sure, on
Yes.
both sides.
Yes.
If you're gonna give me 20 hours, it's not just 20 hours this week. It's you have to be there
Correct.
every week.
Correct. Yeah, it's very important because once you give 20 hours and 20 hours and 20 hours and then you stop,
Yeah.
I'm gonna obviously not fulfill my end because you're not fulfilling your end. So
Right.
you're not going to be as important as you should be because you made a deal with me. I'll give you 20 hours if you give me 40 hours, and that's just how I roll, right?
Right.
If you came in 20 hours and I only gave you 10 hours of
Value.
then you're going to be upset that I didn't keep my end
Yeah.
of the bargain. So
Yeah.
I always keep my end of the bargain because I know that person can generate income for the company
Right.
as well as making them another asset that the company has, which is
Right.
great.
We could never be more committed to an agent's success than they are.
Right, correct.
Right. So
Correct.
I can have the best training in the world. If you're going to show up and not apply it, right? The biggest misnomer is the training really good? The training can be great, but if you're not going to do anything with it,
Right.
the money, where the rubber hits the road, right, is the application. What did you learn? What are we going to be doing with it, right?
Correct.
So that comes with the commitment on the other side.
It's like, for the first 15 or 20 years of my life, I was very into Okinawan Bujutsu, which is a form of karate, right?
Okay.
So when I first started, there was 100 people in the class.
Yeah.
Guess what happened 15 years later? There was not one of those 100 people left but me. You know what I mean? 'Cause
What, you kill them all with your karate chops or what?
Pretty much. Pretty much. It's just that I was very
survival
committed.
of the fittest.
Yeah,
here.
yeah, of course. I was very fit back then too. Not like that. But the commitment that I had to the craft made me the only person left, and that commitment is no different in real estate. You have to, if you're going to commit to it, then commit to it, and let's go
Right.
forward. And everybody that I hire, I always say is, hopefully you're not going to be told this is the wrong decision. You shouldn't be doing it because there's not going to be a lot of people in your corner when you
Right.
ditch a normal 9 to 5 and try to become an entrepreneur.
Right.
It's one of those things that you have to have support.
Yes.
But I can guarantee you when you come into work every day, all 10 of us are going to support you to get better and better and better because
Yeah.
we're all in there to do the same exact thing as earn and learn. And that's just the environment that we keep, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Excellent.
Come to the office anytime. You'll be
Yeah.
very, very excited.
So, tell us about there's a fairly recent decision, maybe 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, right, to take Coldwell Banker Commercial AMH out of multiple listing, right? Mm-hmm. So, for an agent on the residential side who has access to the residential MLS, which I think is kind of a little bit of a misnomer because they have a commercial section.
They do.
But it's really a residential MLS. So
Correct.
Why would a commercial broker not be part of that? So why don't you share your thoughts on that? With our
Because
audience?
in my experience, since I started in commercial, most investors, buyers, and sellers are not going to put a $3-4 million property on an MLS site. It's just not something that a seller or investor or buyer is going to go to look for a property.
Right.
We now have designated sites, and we had designated sites back then.
Right.
But that's where you go to buy property. You go to a commercial site to buy commercial property. You don't go to a residential site to buy commercial property. You just don't. So we understood that, and we said, okay, so we don't need to have our agents paying these MLS fees when we're never going to use MLS.
Yeah.
The only thing I can tell you about MLS is that if you go there and look at how many commercial properties are dead on there, it's immense amount of property.
Right.
Because you have your real estate license, you can sell residential or commercial.
Right. So for our audience that's not licensed, just so they're clear on this, the real estate license that's required in New York State is the same for residential, commercial.
Correct.
It's really the discipline.
Yeah, you have to understand it, you have to know it, you have to train for it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, every person that we talk to about coming over to commercial, who are maybe at a commercial, place, never got any training. They just say, go buy your own cards, go get your own leads, and if you have a question, let me know. And most of them fail. Yeah. We don't work that way. We train every single solitary day. You come into the office with training.
Okay, so Tony, real quickly, so we came to this conclusion that we really should have a separate licensed commercial organization, and it's licensed. Well, certainly we have the value and support of Coldwell Banker and their franchise, because they realize that commercial is a separate animal. So Coldwell Banker Residential and Coldwell Banker Commercial are two separate franchises. So they offered us that, and we took it outside and licensed it single and separate than the residential offices. And many of the residential agents come across commercial leads.
Yes.
Right. So are you of the mindset that a residential agent is actually better off referring the commercial business over than trying to attempt to do it themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're I like to give examples. If you're a person that just bakes cake for a living, why would you take on an ice cream shop if you don't know anything about it?
Right.
If you're a residential agent and you come across a commercial listing, just give us the referral and let us take care of it for you. All you have to do is hand it over to us, and not worry about it, and we'll be in contact with you constantly to let you know what's happening with the referral.
Yeah.
Some come through and some don't. It just depends.
It's interesting. I think agents don't like to turn away business, obviously, because they're, it's business. But at the same time, the easiest business to get is referral business. And right? Yes. So, and how do you build your referral business? Here's a simple hint. Do a good freaking job, right?
Correct.
So you do a really good job, and you've been a successful residential agent, and then you get a lead in commercial, and you really don't have the experience or discipline or understanding of it. When you mishandle that, it's you just burn that referral lead out. And now here's someone who could have referred you 3 more residential deals, and now they don't trust you. So I think it's extremely empowering to an agent when they can look at the person and say, hey, look, I really appreciate your referral business, but I'm not the best person for this because it's an added discipline.
Yes.
This is my specialty, and I'm want to hand this off to somebody else who's going to give you a better experience.
And that goes back to the first thing you said. That's doing a great job for your client.
Yes. It's putting them in the right hands.
Yes.
And then those people appreciate that you're stepping away, and they know it's business too.
Right.
So that you put their needs in front of your own, so to speak.
What I'd like to say to the residential agents really quick is that you may sell 20 houses a year, and some of your, let's just say 30% of your houses that sell, they own a business or a piece of property other than residential.
Right.
But we put hundreds of listings up every year.
Right.
And I guarantee you every one of my clients has a house.
Right.
So the referral business goes both ways.
Yes, it
I'm
does.
a professional commercial guy. I do nothing with residential. I know how it works. I'm not really into residential, so I would refer out all my residential business. So
correct.
I may get 3 from you. You may get 7 or 8 from me. So it's going to go back and forth. So
correct. Yeah.
I'm not going to put myself in a position to not help my client the best I can. And referring it out is the best thing I can do for my client.
Perfect. It's a good philosophy. It's really,
course.
fundamental. If you always put the client first,
yes,
the rest of the stuff takes care of itself.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Mm-hmm.
So in this podcast, we always like to maybe pivot a little bit to, the play side, the personal side. So I want to take this to the next section. Before I do, I just want to remind our audience, if you like the episode, if you like the podcast going on, please remember to like and subscribe. Okay, so
Love that.
So Tony, commercial real estate deals. I mean, obviously they're intense.
Yes.
The bigger numbers. A lot more detail in them. But when you're not working, how does Tony actually unwind?
Well, I'm a very big family man, so I love spending time with my family.
Yeah.
There's nothing more that I want to do in life at my age than spend time with my family and my grandkids. I love it.
How many kids you have now?
I have 4 boys and a girl and a boy, grandson and granddaughter.
All right.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. There's nothing better than that. So as much time as I can spend with them, I do. But I love tennis. I love racquetball. I'm okay at pickleball. It's a little too different for me, and I love to shoot pool. So anytime I can get that in, I will.
All right. I'm just going to make sure I hold on to my wallet when I get near that pool table. I have a feeling we got a shark in the room.
Hold your wallet when you're playing racquetball too, my friend.
Oh, you can do that too,
Yes,
huh?
yes.
All right, cool. All right, so what's one fun fact about Tony that people might not expect?
I'm just really into whatever my younger children are into.
Yeah.
Whether it's playing video games with them or going out and shooting basketball, whatever they like, I take a very big interest into it because it's important.
Yeah.
I mean, when was the last time you saw a 63-year-old guy playing Rubik's Cube? I mean, it's just my son's into it, so
yeah.
I want to be into it. I like to support them in what they love to do to excel them because they have to. If they're going to take an interest in something, I try to let them make sure that the interest is going to go to the point where they're going to be famous. I'm crazy like that, but I support in everything they do, and that's
Good.
Really cool to me.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
That's cool to me too.
Yeah, no,
I like
really
that.
is.
I really do. So charity and giving back is a big part of the culture at American Homes and CBC AMH, as we call it, right?
Yes.
Are there any causes or initiatives that you're really passionate about?
I'm a cancer survivor, so I do everything I can for the cancer cause.
Yeah.
There was a time in my life where I would play Santa for a week for cancer kids and stuff like that. It was, as fulfilling it was very sad. That was very, very important to me. And the heart of American Homes is very important to me too because it's going to help people that are really in need. And your company and the heart of American Homes is really there for people. And that's very emotional. I like to help people that are in need.
Yeah, I like to say, because I think it's accurate, the heart of American Homes is really our great agents because they really rally around that organization, and it's a true foundation with 100% of money raised going back into the community, people of need. So what's an example of commercial real estate project that had a major positive impact on community?
I would say multifamily, has more impact on community than anything because it gives more people places to live at a good price depending on where it's going to be. The boroughs are very big for that. They knock down condemned buildings and build beautiful places for Section 8, which is, people who can't afford it need a place to live, and it's important. So I think apartment buildings, multifamily is definitely more of an impact in commercial than anything else. I mean, no one's going to get excited over an industrial property that's producing ice cream. I mean, nobody really cares about that,
Yeah, exactly.
They care about people living and going to a good school system. And
although the warehouse does help support the tax base.
Yes, of course. But
normal
people don't feel that as an impact.
Yeah.
The people that think about how much they're paying in taxes and how much the properties are absorbing the taxes are very few and far between. So, the word impact means more majority than not. So I think the multifamily sector is really made more of an impact on real estate.
There we go.
It's time for the Drop the Mic question.
If you had to be locked inside a commercial property overnight, which property would it be and why?
I would like to be locked in a gym. I would go to the gym only because I wouldn't have to wait for a machine. I can just do a circuit any way I want and do it on my time frame.
Yeah.
And I could also go behind the counter and make myself a nice shake and
there you go.
Do everything I possibly can. So, as crazy as that sounds, I think a gym would be great.
All right. Very cool. Well, Tony, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here on the Work Hard, Play Hard, and Give Back Real Estate Podcast.
Yes, I'm blessed to be here. Thank you so much.
We're really excited to see what you're doing and what you've done already with the commercial opportunity that's there, and its growth has been exponential.
Thank you.
It's very impressive. And
I didn't do it myself. It's a team effort. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to see where you take this thing, and I'm sure it's going to make a major impact across the marketplace.
Yeah,
So,
I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thanks
Yes.
for having me. And
absolutely. Now, if anyone in our audience wants to either reach out to you with a commercial opportunity, a commercial
Yes.
referral,
Yes.
how do they reach Tony Briguglio?
oh, beautiful,
There we go.
Mr. Litzner. You can call me my cell, which is 631-919-7492.
Okay.
It's the simplest way. I always answer my phone. If I missed your call, I call you back in 38 seconds.
Okay. We have a website.
Yes, it's cbcamh.com. That's Coldwell Banker Commercial AMH.com. So it's just abbreviated, cbcamh.com.
Awesome.
We have about 60 or 70 properties up there right now, so you can look at them all, and we can help you with buying and selling or leasing or getting you a tenant, whatever you need.
Perfect. All right, Tony, thanks so much for being part of the show.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
So remember, stay tuned. New episodes come out every 2 weeks on Wednesday. Please like and subscribe. We'd love to have your comments and feedback.